Good afternoon on what is a bright, cool day. It is Thursday, the 9th of December, and I'm in the reading nook with a big box and a couple of parcels to open, and of course a nice hot cup of tea. So I'm going to start with the bigger parcel. Now this is one I've already dug into before, so let's keep going down. I've only pulled out one thing so far, but there are multiple things in here, so I need to extract these. So let's just, there we go. It's this big pile, and previously I pulled out this, the narrator's kit for John Carter of Mars from Modiphius Entertainment. Let's see what the next thing in here is. It's another book. Out of the way. Do you want to go back in the box? But here we go. This is the Phantoms of Mars campaign guide. Now, the first thing you'll notice is the format of the book. Now, like all of the John Carter of Mars line from Modiphius Entertainment, it's done in landscape, not portrait format, as is usual for the industry. It's very rare that you get a book done in landscape format. Perhaps the most well-known is Underground's role-playing game, basically the cyberpunk superhero role-playing game from Mayfair Games called Underground. But all of these from the John Carter line, of Mars line are in landscape format. So, okay. Conspiracies on the dying world of Barsoom. I must admit that cold shivers played along my spine, and the short hairs at the base of my head stiffened and rose up, as do those upon a hound's neck when he's in the night, when his eyes see those uncanny things which are hidden from the sight of man. So Edgar Burrough's John Carter of Mars, Phantoms of Mars, provides you with a unique campaign for the John Carter of Mars Adventures on the Dying World of Barsoom role-playing game. Play through an epic story of swordplay and conspiracy using the 2D20 system. So uncover the Eidolon conspiracy using your wits, brawn and the help of your companions. Adventure to familiar locales and new locations as the campaign takes you across the dying red planet. New rules and statistics for narrator characters are included for each adventure. New creatures are introduced with their new rules and statistics explained. Narrator advice on how to insert the campaign into your ongoing game or as a separate storyline. Rules for miniatures combat builds on the 2D20 system conflict mechanics for a standalone skirmish game experience. This campaign segment requires John Carter of Mars Adventures on the Dying World core rulebook. So there we go. That's on the back, just a simple list. Now, what is interesting about this list is where it says rules for miniatures combat builds on the 2D20 system conflict mechanics. Back in the 70s, there was a set of rules, basically for fighting. But basically, it's a set of rules. I post a link down below that dealt with miniatures combat on Edgar Burrough's Barsoom. And introduced essentially, and then sort of segued that into sort of like some fairly basic role-playing rules. They're not, by modern standards, they are not very good, they're not very clear, and they're not really very playable as written, but the miniatures combat rules are fine. If there's one thing, it's certainly the gaming industry by the sort of 70s certainly had experience of it, was writing war games rules. Now they've been doing it for years since, but essentially they had plenty of experience. But then it's by Heritage Inc., I believe, who would also do a very early version, a very early Star Trek role-playing game. So we open up and we've got the traditional map of Mars on the inside cover, beautifully red, lots of ochre colours, and this is followed through on the inside. So it's really kind of a rich kind of looking book. I do like this. And in some ways, what's a little bit odd is that you have these large books, which will kind of fit on the same size shelves as your digest size books, but stick out. Anyway, so we get into the actual campaign. Start here
and it says Phantom Mars is the first series for John Carter of Mars to complete campaign arc in 4 parts. It's on a conspiracy that spans the entire world of Barsoom and threatens to devastate many of the civilizations and people that call the Red Planet home. So it's aimed at a group of 3 to 5 players, relatively inexperienced, and can be played with relatively inexperienced characters. So this is the starting point. You've got the core rules. You can grab this and start playing. Of course, you'll possibly combine it with the narrator's kit, and then we've got a guide here to using Carter. But essentially, the point is that you can use John Carter and his companions, but really it's designed for the player characters in mind. Essentially, player characters of the player's own creation, that is. So we've got a quick guide to keeping it movement and using threat and momentum, and so we go, and then we go on to a description of Barsoom's tiniest railroad. And that's actually not necessarily a discussion of are there railways on Mars? No. This is actually talking about railroading in terms of storytelling, and I think really essentially that there is an element of railroading in the campaign here, partly because essentially there's the whole trope of player characters getting captured or placed in death traps and escaping. Then we've got the cast of characters. So we essentially discusses the power of recurring enemies like the Eidolon agents of various power levels. And these basically, so we've got those. Those are sort of general minions. So we have them of elite Eidolon guards, which go from minions to monsters. And then we have the Gail Moran, the villain of the piece, and Jax Kurgas. So there we go. Basically, they get full write-ups. I mean, basically, so do the minions there. Really really nicely presented, clean and simple. And we've got multiple ones of these. It's lots and lots of villains. Before we get into, let's have a look what's next. The other thing, though, I would say is that handling this book is not as easy as if it was here, because it's sort of longer and sort of like floppier, if you see what I mean. It's you're not really used to handling a book in that format. Then we go on to the friends who can become allies. So lots of NPCs for the Game Master to get involved in and bring into play before we get into the first part, in the Shadows of Corvus. And we've got plenty of notes here, so notes on Corvus, discussion of eras of play, because there are different periods when you can play on Barsoom. And then we go into scene 1.1, a fine day for kidnapping. So it's broken down even further. So, you've got part 1 and then part 1 of part 1, as it were. So 1.1 of 1. And there's advice here of also using tiles. And one of the things that Modiphius publishes for the John Carter of Mars role-playing game is a set of tiles on which you can set up and have on the table in front of you and play out, essentially using miniatures or tokens of your choice. And we're going to scene 2, and essentially these are quite short scenes. These are really very good, quick. So this is just 2 pages, and then even the next scene at show you a bit. Let's just have a look. Scene 1.3 is barely a page long and includes a map. Scene 1.4
4 is even shorter. And then scene point 1.5 there, it's you know, there's a certain brevity to this piece. That's fine. I mean, basically, you know, not everything needs to be too complex. In fact, there's a bit more to scene 1.5. It's over the page, and then essentially that comes up to the first part of the scenario. So I'm going to flip forward. I'm not going to go through all of the scenario, but 4 parts. Should keep a campaign, basically introduce the setting and get a campaign playing for multiple sessions. I can imagine sort of like you're probably getting in like 2 or 3 scenes per session. So on that basis, these you know, you're looking at perhaps so 2 to 3 sessions per part. I mean, that all depends upon your players and how focused they are, and whether or not they want their player characters to go shopping, which is a possibility. Although not actually necessary in John Carter of Mars, but you know, players and their player characters being what they are, shopping is always an alternative. So we come to the 5th chapter in here. So the 5th chapter, just trying to get pages sticking together because they're nice and glossy. So we've got the 2D20 Skirmish Rules. Okay, so this is in chapter 5, 6, and 7, and enables essentially what you need to play. You know, to play this, 5 20-sided dice, at least 6 combat dice, a tape measure, ruler, other measurement, and your sort of John Carter miniatures. So what you can do is you can take all those tiles and counters and so on and use those and the miniatures, a bit like I show you here. And the other thing, of course, is that you could integrate that with your role-playing campaign. So the Skirmish Rules really aren't very long. I mean, there's no surprise given the lightness of the mechanics and rules in John Carter of Mars. It's probably the lightest version of the 2D20 system. So let's have a look. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Let's have a look. Just yeah, I mean, not huge amount of like, I mean, you know, the pages themselves are fairly short, and you know, they do take in things like your special abilities and luck, and there's also basically we've got 4 stats for various villains, and also Martian flyers, because you know there's nothing quite says Mars without some kind of aerial vessel, as well as canals. And we've got here you've got unit profiles for the actual miniatures combat, and they're illustrated by decently taken photos of the miniatures themselves. There we go. So what this means is that you can take you can keep these rules and keep playing basically your miniatures game after you play through the campaign. So it has a long-term benefit, and if you're integrating the two, sort of like the combat rules, the skirmish rules into your game, yeah, you've basically you've got an expansion here. And here we've got the heroes, including John Carter himself, as fully statted up for the miniature game. So this isn't necessarily something, and also yeah, beasts as well. So you know, it's comprehensive. So they are fairly lengthy, but they're not too detailed. Then we've got the Skirmish Scenarios,
like for your first game at the arena, because that's really kind of like fits the society. You know, you've got arenas where gladiators fight for the masses and that sort of thing, and duels of honour might be settled. So your first combat is in the arena, and then we've got one-shot scenarios and last spark standing, scenario down men always in distress. So sample scenarios which you can play through and learn how to play the game. So, and then essentially you've actually got another second campaign in the back here. You've got the Fall of the Eidolon, which is a companion set of rules. Campaign, but using the miniatures rules. So there's actually quite a lot in here. It's just over 110 pages, 115, something like that, and it's very nicely done. If you are a fan of the planetary romance genre, then this is probably something you're interested in. So yeah, and then we've got basically a glossary of terms with pictures of the miniatures, so you can see the notable four-armed creatures of Mars, or Barsoom. So that's Phantoms of Mars, essentially your first campaign to playing John Carter of Mars, and I think essentially if you've got that, it gives you everything you need to start playing. Of course, obviously you need dice and the rules, but essentially this will keep you going for multiple sessions and provide plenty of exciting play, I would have thought. So yeah. Oh well, anyway, thank you very much for watching another unboxing in the Nook. If you've enjoyed this, please do click the like button down below. And if you've got any comments or feedback, I appreciate you taking the time to post those, and I do respond. Sadly, no cat in this video. Not much I can do about that. He's asleep in the in the greenhouse. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings in the Nook, where you will see me out here with packages, and a book or game which I will unbox and talk about to the best of my knowledge for 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do hit that subscribe button. In the meantime, thanks again for watching, and I'll be back again soon with another unboxing in the Nook. Bye for now.